Thank you. Good evening. My name is Joel Dinkin. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Evelyn Rubinstein Jewish Community Center, and I would like to welcome you to our Information and Resource Program. The last two times that we've provided the program following the Memorial Day floods and the Tax Day floods, the ERJCC was open, and we housed it at the center, and we had a wide variety of resources there. Unfortunately, the center sustained a tremendous amount of damage as a result of Hurricane Harvey, and we have not been able to reopen yet. And I reached out, I'm a congregant here at Brith Shalom, and I reached out to Rabbi Teller, and they opened their building so that we can provide this evening's program and this important information to you and resources to you as we, as a community, we continue to work through these very many challenges. So I want to take a minute and an opportunity to thank the leadership of Congregation Brith Shalom, Rabbi Teller, Steve Rubin, who's in the back, who's the president of the board. Steve, thank you very much. Larry Estes, who's in the back, who's executive director here at Brith Shalom. In addition to housing this event, a couple weeks ago, the center had a concert here. And we've been having other kind of programming here, so it's great having these community partners. I also want to take a minute and to introduce Debbie Kaplan, who's the chair of the board of trustees of the ERJCC over there in the orange, and a number of our board members and staff who are here tonight volunteering. Briefly, the format of the program is we have a number of resources up here. Sylvia Dauber, who's our volunteer coordinator at the J, will introduce the program. Following the conclusion of the program, in each of the brief presentations, we'll have a Q&A, and our volunteers, and you may have had an opportunity to pick up a little note card out in the front when you came in. You can write your questions on here, pass them up to the volunteers, and then we will ask those questions. Sometime when the formal presentation is over, around 7:40, 7:45-ish, those of you who have some specific questions around FEMA, the FEMA representatives will be outside in the lobby where they were before the program started, as well as representatives from Jewish Family Service that are here. They will be outside as well. But we have some wonderful resources here, and I'm going to transition right to the program. Thank you for being here. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Sylvia, who will introduce our program, the presenters, and we'll begin to provide you with some very important and timely information. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Our first speaker is from FEMA, and I'm going to let her do her introductions.
Hello, my name is Susan Miles. I'm here on behalf of the individual assistance programs from FEMA. And our program is designed to help the survivors of a disaster get the recovery funds they need when it's not covered by insurance, SBA loans, volunteer organizations, whatever sources you may have to get funds. To date, we have over 824,000 people that were impacted by Hurricane Harvey that have registered for assistance. Out of that, we have given more than $680 million to the survivors here in Southeast Texas. Our home inspections are taking about 30 days from the time we send the request over to the contractors for them to be able to get to our survivors, because there's only 2,000 inspectors out there. So if you are an inspector and you have the background and you're willing to work with us, please contact us. We'll get you in touch with the contractors and try and get more of you out there helping to get these contracts going a little bit faster. We have 3 ways for you to apply for assistance. You can call, which I don't suggest because it's a long wait time. About 3 hurricanes in a couple of weeks. But the number, if you want to call, 1-800-621-3362. We strongly suggest you go online to www.disasterassistance.gov or see one of our disaster service assistants at a community event or go to your local disaster recovery center. And the nearest one to our location tonight is at the Bayland Community Center. And we hope to be able to get to as many survivors as possible and get as much help as we can to you.
Our next presenter is Richard Smith with the Department of Public Works. He has been with the City of Houston for 11 years and is currently assisting the Flood Management Office for Harvey Recovery. We have microphones if you'd like to stay seated, or you can come up here.
As she said, my name is Richard Smith. I'm in the city engineer's office for the City of Houston. I'd be happy to answer any questions, things that come up today, but just to give you guys a little bit of background, some of the things, within the week and a half after Harvey, we inspected there's 100,000 homes that we know of that are parcels that are within the 100-year floodplain. We had inspected or had seen all of those. We know that there was 31,000 homes that were damaged within that 100-year floodplain, and we know that 24,000 of those are within our single-family homes. So that tells you where we are. We know that we've inspected all the apartments in the City of Houston. We know that only about 6% of them sustained damage, but those that did, pretty much most of the first floors are wiped out, so a lot of those, if you're looking for apartments, may be tough to come by in certain areas. But again, I will be here afterwards or to answer any questions. I have some documents that people are wanting to know about repairing single-family homes, what it would take, what you need permits for, what you don't need permits for, things like that, and I'll be happy to answer any of those questions.
Our next speaker is Justin Wedby. Mr. Wedby of Frontier Adjusters is a second-generation insurance professional with more than 20 years of experience in resolving losses. His focus is on complex claims and in utilizing dispute resolution methods provided in most insurance policies. He specializes in flood situations. He has specialized in that his entire career. In the audience is Catherine Ritter, and she's a claims coordinator, and I'll let her just raise her hand. She's been in the insurance industry for 30 years, and she's available to answer questions after the event about flooded homes, cars, roof claims due to wind.
Good evening to everyone. First of all, I want to say I feel for all of you for what you're going through, because not only am I an insurance adjuster, in my past I've actually had my personal house and my business flood. So I can understand exactly the feelings and emotions you're going through and trying to work through and figure out how you're going to rebuild things. So I have a disclaimer to start with, though. I work for a number of different insurance companies. I'm independent. I don't work for a specific company. So the information I'm going to provide tonight is basic as to how the flood program works with the adjusting side of things. Individual insurance companies may have specific ways they do things that may not match what I say. Overall, though, the scope of the information I'll provide tonight is what FEMA trains us on every year. We go to a recurring certification every year to be able to handle these claims for you. So a few notes on things you should be paying attention to. My second disclaimer. I'm not a tax professional, but make sure you keep accurate records of everything your insurance company or FEMA does not pay for, and talk to your tax professional. Oftentimes, you're able to take some sort of deduction on your income taxes in the next year. What that will be will vary, and that's why I'm saying talk to your tax professional. That I can't tell you. Correct. 16 taxes. So what she's saying is that anyone affected by Harvey, your deadlines have been extended to January, and that you'll be able to put it on these returns. I'm sure she might be able to share some more later on that. The thing to keep in mind is your adjusters are there to help you. A lot of times there's a misnomer that adjusters want to come out and write the smallest amount of damage there is and give you a check. When we go through our training at FEMA, they actually tell us to pay everything we can, but it still has to fit in their box of coverage. So as long as we can get it in there, they want us to put the money out there. And your adjusters, most of the time, if they are independent like I am, actually are paid based on what you get. The more you get, the more that adjuster's paid. So it behooves them to advocate for you in trying to get your claim paid accurately and with as much as possible under the policy. Now I'm going to give you some initials I suggest you write down. A lot of people have been given advances from your insurance companies. A lot of times they're very small, $5,000, $10,000, and we're past spending that money now. So the initials are BVLA. I'll be happy to answer questions on this later or after the session tonight. That stands for Building Valuation Loss Assessment. About 10 days ago, the NFIP and FEMA put out a bulletin which said we could use this special loss assessment, and it's a spreadsheet we're given, for homes that had damage to the 4-foot or above levels. In other words, drywall to the 4-foot or above. What it allows us to do is shortcut getting you more money. Your adjuster should know about this. If they don't, you need to ask them if you haven't heard from them about it. We actually complete a valuation on your home on what its value was prior to the loss. We complete a diagram and we do this spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet gives us an approximation of what they believe your final claim will be. With that, they can turn in a new advance request to your insurance company and try to get more funds in your pocket more quickly, which is what NFIP is wanting to do via the insurance companies. I realize that'll probably have a lot more questions later. Happy to answer them, but it's something you need to talk to your adjusters about. The last thing I'll comment on tonight is, for many of you, this isn't your first flood. One of the things that the insurance companies require us to do is prove repairs were made because they won't pay you twice. So if you have photos from when you were in the middle of repairs or receipts, even better, canceled checks, go gather that information up front and provide it to your adjuster early so that they're not chasing it on the back end. The prior flood losses will slow down your new claim being paid, because a lot of the claims we're seeing this year, the water was a lot higher, it was a lot worse. But we still have to go back and prove the prior repairs were made. That's all I have for now. I'm happy to answer questions later.
Our next speaker is Darla Booker. Darla is with the SBA Office of Disaster Assistance and is a public information officer who ensures disaster damaged community residents are aware of the recovery assistance programs available throughout the U.S. Small Business Administration. Darla is a native of Oklahoma City and has 35 years service with the Federal Government of Public Affairs. Her most recent assignment is SBA Regional Communications Director, where she oversaw communications in Texas, Arkansas, oh, thank you, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, Louisiana, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. You can stay there, there's a microphone right there. Okay.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting us out tonight. We have been here like FEMA since day one. So after FEMA, what a lot of people don't realize is that the U.S. Small Business Administration is the federal government's primary source of money to help communities recover from disasters. So since the disaster has begun here, since the recovery has begun here, SBA has approved over $546 million as of today. Most of that money, about 80% of it, is going to homeowners and renters. So that's what a lot of people don't know that SBA, the Small Business Administration, does. We provide disaster loans to help homeowners, renters, businesses of all sizes, including nonprofit organizations such as churches and homeowners associations. So what do we do? Let me just tell you a little bit about, for homeowners, we offer loans They're affordable, low-interest, long-term loans. They are up to $200,000 to replace or repair your residence, and then we offer an additional $40,000 for homeowners who have lost personal items, including your car. We offer those loans starting at 1.75% up to 30 years. For renters, we offer up to $40,000. Those loans start at 1.75%, also up to 30 years. And then for businesses, we offer up to $2 million for up to 30 years, and those loans start at 3.3%. We also offer what we call an economic injury loan, so there may be a business that didn't have a direct impact from the flooding, but yet they also suffered economically because they lost their customer base. So we offer loans in the form of working capital loans up to $2 million, and those loans start at 3.3%. I wanted to say that we have a little over, our lines are pretty busy too. We have a 1-800 number. If those of you who have not applied for SBA, we encourage you to register with FEMA first and then apply for an SBA loan. Those who aren't approved for the loan are always referred back to FEMA for other forms of assistance. There's 3 ways to apply for SBA. You can apply online at sba.gov. You can apply in person at one of our disaster recovery centers, and like Susan mentioned, the closest center to this area is the Bayland Community Center over on Bissonnet. Right now we have about over 50 centers opened up throughout Texas and the affected areas. And in addition to the disaster recovery centers, we also have 5 business recovery centers that are specific to help businesses. So you can apply online at sba.gov. You can apply at one of our disaster recovery centers, talking one-on-one with one of our customer service representatives, or you can also apply by mail. And you can get that application by calling our 1-800 number, and that's 1-800-659-2955. We'll be happy to help you with that. Yes, it's 1-800-659-2955. I also have my seasoned colleague here, Don Fikes. He's been doing SBA disasters for quite a long time, and so he's here to help with any specific questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dewana Cohen, and she's been with J.P. Morgan Chase for 17 years, holding various roles throughout several lines of business. Dewana is currently VP in the commercial bank, and she can understand the devastation and toll flooding takes on a family and their finances, as she resided in Meyerland and her home flooded in the Memorial Day flood in 2015. Her son attends Schlenker, and her daughter graduated from Schlenker and now attends Pin Oak Middle School.
So now you know my personal story. And it wasn't that long ago I was sitting where you're sitting, and I get it and I understand. I could go through the list of things that the bank has done, refunding fees, refunding overdrafts. You know, we were affected as a business too. About 25% of our branches were flooded and closed. We only have a handful closed. And of course, that's the Meyerland branch, right? It's still closed. We're hoping middle of November, but we also all know how rebuilding goes, right? So hopefully middle of November. I want to make myself a resource to you. Again, I've been with the bank 17 years. I've worked all over. I know a little bit of everybody, good and bad. But if there's something you have a question on, whether it's your personal accounts, business accounts, commercial accounts, I believe they're providing our contact information. I have my business card. I will stay late and answer any question that you have. I remember at this time when we flooded for Memorial Day. It's emotional, it's difficult, you almost feel forgotten. There's been other natural disasters happen. There's many other things happening in our world, but it doesn't stop what's happening in your personal life and how you rebuild and how you keep your family together and you keep your faith. So, get it? Now, if every single one of you email me, it'll take me a couple days. Yeah, I'm not that fast of a typer either. But I will find an answer for you, good or bad. You will get an answer from me, and I'll do the best I can for you. And Chase is comprised of your community members, people here in Meyerland, Bel Air, across the city. We've been flooded, we've helped, we've done what we can, but again, I would just like to make myself a resource for you, for any questions you have, or if I can help in any way with it, navigate the bank for you. Now, he's who everybody else wants to talk to. He's with the mortgage area, so she'll probably introduce himself.
Thank you. Mr. Branch currently serves as the Vice President in Chase Home Lending's Customer Assistance Department. With more than 40 years of banking experience, he's the primary point of contact for nonprofit and other organizations providing assistance to Chase customers who need help with their mortgage accounts.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks again for having us here to share some information with you. So with respect to Chase Home Lending and what we've been doing to help our customers, I want you to know first, we are committed to making this as easy a process for you. We understand your pain, and like my colleague Duana, I have also lived through a hurricane when I lived in the Virgin Islands, and you know they were also recently devastated. So I've gone through this myself, so I know what you're going through. And at Chase, our mission is to make it as painless for you as we possibly can. So what we've done is we've immediately put all of our customers that are in the FEMA designated areas, FEMA designated disaster areas, on a 3 months grace period. So you don't even need to contact us, but if you do wish to contact us, please feel free to do that. But we have immediately put all of our customers in those areas on a 3 months grace period. No payments are required, there's no late fees being charged, and also there's no late reporting to the credit bureaus. It is our intention that between now and the end of that 3 month period that we will be in contact with each of our customers to be able to see what their exact position is, if they need longer assistance, and I'm sure many of you will probably need assistance that's much longer than 3 months, then we'll work with you on an individual case. We can do forbearances up to 6 months if you contact us. And if you need longer than 6 months, then we can also do an additional 6 months period. Now, clearly, some loans that are FHA, VA, or other government-guaranteed or owned loans have some different requirements and different criteria. We are working with those government agencies to see what special programs they will allow after the 3 month period has expired, so that when we have those conversations with you, we can then tell you what your options are at the end of the 3 month period. Clearly, for additional information, we encourage you to reach out to us. For those customers here or those persons here who are Chase Mortgage customers, if you'd like to write this number down, 866-550-5705. That is a number directly to our mortgage lending or home lending customer assistance department, where we have special relationship managers that will work with you on a one-on-one basis throughout the process. Or you can also visit our website at www.chase.com/mortgage/mortgage assistance. And that website has a lot of information on the various programs available, what kind of forms will eventually be needed, and how to apply if you need more assistance beyond the 3 months or beyond the 6 months period. The phone number is 866-550-5705. Now, more than likely, we will be calling you during that 90-day period, the 3 month period, but rest assured it is not to request payments. It's not going to be a collections call, but it's more to find out how you're doing, how can we help you, what additional assistance do you need to get your feet back on the ground. Again, your first priority, we want you to focus on that being your home and your family. Your mortgage at this point, in our view, is secondary to you getting those things organized. So I'll be here to answer any other questions you might have. And in closing, I'd just like to encourage you, the Hope Now Alliance, I don't know if you've heard of them. This is an alliance of all of the mortgage servicers that are in the area, the housing counseling agencies, the SBA, FEMA, they're going to be there as well. We'll be hosting a homeowners event at the Chinese Community Center from October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. All of the mortgage servicers will be there, so if you wanted to have direct interaction with your mortgage servicer, you can take advantage of that opportunity as well. But I'll be here to answer any other questions that you might have.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Wayne Fairley. He leads Planet 3 Elevation. Planet 3 is Texas's leading provider of slab home elevation services. Before Wayne founded P3 Elevation, he provided leadership for financial software teams in several Fortune 500 companies. In 1995, Wayne's P3 team pioneered slab home elevation methods in partnership with FEMA, and since they have elevated over 1,000 slab homes. Planet 3 is based in Katy. Welcome.
Thank you very much. We are very pleased to be here tonight, honored to speak with you. Thank you. You've heard the panel say we want to be a resource, and that's exactly the approach that we've taken since Harvey. We want to be a resource to you to learn about and understand and get your head around the details of what elevation is and is not. There's a lot of misconceptions about what it is. Frankly, about half the calls we get, the very first question is slab elevation really a thing? And it's usually the wife, right? And they said, I told my husband that, and he didn't believe me. And I looked at your website, and we called, and sure enough, it is. So we like those questions. Keep them coming. We've taken a lot of calls over the last 3 weeks, so thank you very much for your patience as you wait for us to call back and schedule a time to come see you and measure things and get things lined out for you. As you heard earlier, we pioneered slab home elevation. About 22 years ago, FEMA came to my now partner and said, wonder if we could lift slab houses routinely. And so, yes, they did. The methods were crude back then, but they proved that it could be done. And we've invented some machinery and some a method that is widely used today. It's a very sound method, with the right hands at the operator. At the controls, it's a very sound method. As a matter of fact, the second question we always get is, do I need to wait to remodel my house until after I elevate? And the answer is, depends on who's doing the elevation, right? The answer for our company is, you should absolutely do everything that you could possibly do to get your life back together and your family back in your home. Then we can come elevate. And as I like to say, even then, you don't need to take the china out of the china cabinets because we're not going to disrupt your house. And you should not let anyone elevate your house that tells you they want to put a hole in the floor or in a wall or anything else. The method that we use is picture a wedding cake, a big multi-tiered wedding cake. We move wedding cakes, and we do that every day. And a lot of the questions we get about costs, right? It's an expensive proposition. The one thing you want to know is, what is your slab size? If you're a two-story house and it's a stacked house, your slab size is half of the size of the house, right? So you'll want to know that because most of the costs are proportional to slab size. And can I elevate the garage? And in Meyerland and in the city of Houston, the answer is no, you cannot, but we can elevate the garage structure, just can't elevate the garage floor. So depending on your configuration, we can absolutely make the garage work. The trouble we have is getting the stairs and steps just right to work with that elevated garage, but there's always a solution. Are there grants available? The short answer is yes, if you have a substantial damage designation for your house. FEMA guys could tell you more about this. FEMA likes you to get your house out of the floodplain, so they will grant $30,000 to most people to contribute to the elevation if you have a substantial damage or repetitive damage situation. And then you've heard about the big grants, right? Yes, those are available, but they're very difficult, and the probabilities are very low that we qualify, right? Hundreds apply, dozens are sent to Washington. Those have to survive several rounds of filtering there. So yes, there are grants available. Commonly, the $30,000, not so common on the larger grants. So bear with us. We'll be back to you to ask about what are your questions and what are your details. Hopefully, we can cover some of those tonight. And I'd like to close by answering the question, why do people elevate? And the first one is peace of mind, right? You want to be out of the floodplain. Some of my customers in Ireland that we already elevated, they're in that mode of survivor's guilt right now, and it's a good place to be. You want to recover lost value. If your house is flooded, value's diminished, you want to try to recover that. Elevating will help you do that and even increase market value into the future instead of just letting it stagnate at a diminished value. Elevating is a lot faster than rebuilding. If you live in your home and we elevate, you only need to be out of your house. This is for something under 6 feet that I'm talking about. If you only need to be out of your house for a few days, the day we lift, and a few days till we get the plumbing restored. You don't need to be out of your house for a long period of time, as you would with a rebuild. Elevation is expensive, but it's a lot less costly than rebuilding, right? So we'll just leave it there. So you don't take on the debt, though, and have the need for that capital. A couple of small things, you minimize your future plumbing costs, right? Because you have all that plumbing accessible in that crawl space now. And a lot of homes need plumbing refreshed, so that's not a minor deal. And then you basically eliminate future foundation problems because your foundation is no longer subject to the soils that we have here. And lastly, the reason people elevate, they like their home, they want to stay in their home, they want to be in their neighborhoods. So there's some economic and there's some intangible. Thank you guys very much for inviting us to be here tonight.
Our next speaker is Jason Lavich. A third-generation Houstonian, Jason has watched the city grow, shift, change immensely over the years. Jason owns JL Custom Group, a residential remodeling firm, and is also a realtor, where he has merged his appreciation for balancing a design aesthetic with a particular passion for 50s and 60s era homes, while also recognizing how to meet the demands of today's buyers in the current market. As a three-time floodie himself, as he calls himself, he understands both the personal and professional needs of the current housing climate all too well.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? You can hear me? Okay. Like Justin and Dawana, I too, yes, I am a three-time floodie. One thing that's sort of unique about our situation, we lived in Meyerland, our dream mid-century modern ranch on Cadman Court. We flooded twice. We moved to Bel Air, to a home that had never flooded, and flooded again this past month. So kind of an unusual dynamic there. But please know that while I am a realtor and a contractor, I'm here to obviously help where I can. I'm not here to earn business tonight. I'm simply here to help educate, inform. Again, I can relate to what you're going through. It's not a fun process, but if you plan properly, and we're going to go through a theme I'm going to speak to in a minute. If you're patient through the process, things will get easier. It will get better. So that theme, which does seem to be a bit counterintuitive when you want to get back into your house. I know what it's like 3 times to want to get life back to normal, kids in school, dogs in the backyard, life as normal. Patience is really key. Patience and looking for a contractor. If you get a knock on the door, you get a phone call, someone's ready to start tomorrow, I would stay away. Any contractor that's ready to take on a job tomorrow is probably not the best fit for you right now. So keep that in mind. Check references. Again, these things may seem obvious, but I know it's very easy to impulsively want to just get going as soon as you can, get permits and get back in the house. But check references. Look at contractors existing in previous work. Talk to their clients, their former clients. Would they rehire them again? Patience and thinking long-term about the overall design of your remodel, of your budget. Is this going to be a short-term, you want to fix it up, get right back in, and then maybe sell in a year? Is this an opportunity to maybe do some things you've been wanting to do for a long time? Maybe this is your first flood, and you're in a home that you feel is not flood-prone, and you want to take the opportunity to maybe do some additions, make some changes to the house. So again, not impulsively just getting back in there immediately, but taking your time, thinking about the design, thinking about what you wanted to do originally, and take, in a weird way, advantage of this unfortunate opportunity. Patience through the actual remodel process. And this one's tough. Typically, if I've done a number of remodels, maybe 50 or 60 in the Meyerland, Brace Heights, corridor over the last 9 years, and I can almost, to the T, tell you that within 4 months you're back in the house, 4.5 months, and we're almost always right there. I'm telling clients now 6 months. I'm still hoping for 4 months, but there's just so many unknowns right now that, again, any contractor that can promise you a deadline right now, I would just be careful. I'm certainly going to challenge my crew. I am challenging my crew to stay, on top of things and to treat it just like, the normal time. But with supply out there, being a bit diminished, with crews being spread thin, it's just important with the permit process, which I'm sure Rich you could speak to. There's just a few more unknowns that aren't typically there in the middle of March when it's just, 1 or 2 remodels going on in the neighborhood. In closing, again, just from a personal experience, things will get better, I promise. This is not a fun time that, none of us wanted to go through this, let alone 3 times. But it does get easier. It gets better. I'm a perfect example of turning lemons into lemonade. And, I just encourage you guys to stay positive. I will be here, obviously, on the panel to answer questions as well as afterwards. If you guys have any questions, you want to speak to me directly, feel free to find me outside. I'll also give you my card. You can also email me any questions you have at all. This is not looking for business. This is simply to help out, give advice, and help out, however I can. Okay? Thank you, guys.
Our last speaker tonight is Naomi Rosborough. Naomi is a licensed professional counselor supervisor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. A psychotherapist in private practice for over 40 years, Naomi was a co-founder of the Houston Galveston Trauma Institute. Since 2002, she has co-facilitated a 9-month course on trauma and dissociation. She now is teaching and consulting to therapists and institutions and earned both her BA and MA in psychology from Antioch University. I think there's a microphone down there if you prefer.
Can you hear me? Good. Dear friends, Houston is weeping. We are all weeping. And none of us have escaped. I'm going to talk to you about in 3 different areas, and we have very limited time. But I want to address all of you as if you are people who have experienced a terrible trauma, caregivers, first responders, rescuers, because all of us are all of that to each other. We hold each other close now. We give more than we have to give because we're going to get through it together. So first, let me say something about what you might be experiencing. It's called acute stress. Acute stress response. There are certain things that people don't understand that come under the heading of acute stress response. Of course, you all know you're stressed. You don't need me to tell you that. We all are, whether we have had flooding or not, because we drive down the streets and our hearts break when we see people's lives on the curb. If you feel like you're in a daze, if you're trying very hard and making efforts not to be reminded or to think thoughts that are very troubling to yourself and you can't, if you cannot sleep, you're having decreased sleep, uncomfortable sleep, interrupted sleep. Here's the one that I experienced the most: increased irritation. I go from 0 to 85 under the slightest provocation. This is common, ordinary, acute stress reaction. You don't even know where it came from. It has nothing to do with anything you think. You have emotional and body flashbacks. You remember what it was like watching the water come up to the edge of your driveway. You remember what it was like trying to save your grandmother's piano. You remember what it was like when you were so frightened for your children. You're in a bad mood. You feel terrible. You're angry. You're fearful. You're kind of a pain in the neck to be around. Your wife makes a face. Your husband rolls his eyes. All of this seems like too much. We're all doing it. We're all doing it. I'm afraid that joy and love and satisfaction and fun probably aren't in the cards right now. In fact, a young friend said to me, you know, I get together with my friends and we all live in the same area and everybody flooded and we always had fun together, and it's no fun. Everybody wants to talk about their story, and it's true. So that's the acute stress response. And you have to know that trauma is cumulative. If you flooded 3 times, if you have a serious illness, if one of your family members is under stress, if there was a recent death or problem in your family, all of this layers and layers and layers and layers upon itself, then your responses and your reactions are going to be more intense. This is normal. Acute stress responses last from 3 days to a month. If this goes on beyond a month and it's really impairing your functioning, then you take the next step. You think about getting some help. You think about calling Jewish Family Service and having a counselor to talk to. Certainly talking to your friends is very important, and listening is very important. But that's the exhaustion, the grief, which will come later. The grief is overwhelming for everyone. What helps? Getting back to basics. So it's a few weeks now, and most of you have some sense of basics, even though it's not the basics that you want. In the beginning, it was blankets, clean water, breathing, a roof, a working toilet, food for your dog, sleep, oh my God, sleep. Are my kids okay? What about Grandma? Where is she? I saw something on the Facebook that a woman was looking for her parents who lived on St. John's. I mean, can you imagine? So your friends want to talk, you want to talk, they want to be listened to, you want to be listened to, remember that. And sometimes our capacity is compromised and we can't listen anymore, and that's okay too. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. It's when people want to talk to you, it's their way of telling you they wished you had been right close to them when this happened so you could comfort each other. All you need to do is listen. Now, escape is vital, and by escape I mean just getting away from the details and the numbers and the phone calls and the waiting and the text, taking time out for yourself, even though it seems impossible. Going back and forth between escape and coping. So what's coping? Well, for me it would be exercise, and I hope all of you have some interest in doing some kind of physical exercise. And if you don't, you could start by walking 5 minutes a day. Something that will help calm down your neurobiology, that will help calm down your body. Your brain is on fire. It needs calming down. So something you do to do that. Sometimes a nice hot bath is just what's needed, and not another dinner out, because it's too much. It's just too much. You have to figure that out, and it's a good time for families to create rituals together, post-Harvey rituals that help you remember that you're there for each other, that you love each other, that you're not going anywhere, that you're going to rebuild, and it will be different, but you will be together. So just raise your hand if you're worried about your kids or your grandkids and how they're doing all this. Okay, good. Here is something that's very useful. It's a workbook. It's called My Hurricane Story, a guided workbook for children. And where you get it is www.mercycorps.org. It's very, very helpful, and you can do it together. It'll help you, and it will help your children. I want to say to you that you have to learn how to ask for help. It's very important. Many of us are very independent, those days are over. It's too much. You have to learn how to ask for help, and you have to learn how to take help, and that's really hard for some people. You have to let people help you. You have to let them give you something. They will be grateful to both give to you and to receive from you. You have to listen to others. That's all you have to do is listen. You don't have to solve their problems. You don't have to rush in. They want to be listened to. You want to be listened to. Others want to be listened to. And forgiveness. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for not moving your car. Forgive yourself. Forgive others who have disappointed you. Forgive yourself across the board for making a wrong decision or a bad call or the best that you could do. And most of all, notice how brave and strong you have been and how brave and strong you will continue to be, and you are this very moment. Now, there's something that often people don't talk about, but I think it's really important to talk about, the dangers of being a helper, wearing our life jackets. Helpers can overhelp. Sometimes we overhelp, and then we shut out what we need because we're so busy helping. We don't have to think about how exhausted we are, or how we've done too much, or how we've given too much money away, or how we've given too much of our time away, when we really needed to take time for ourselves. So ask yourself, do I help people before they've asked for help? That's kind of one that I do. Before they clearly ask for help, am I running in with help? Apparently, it's not such a good idea. Do I feel guilty and responsible when someone around me has trouble taking care of himself? Do I get angry when I'm convinced that I'm the only one who has the answer for what that particular problem is? Let's see what's needed. You need to distinguish between the role of a caregiver and offering a life jacket. You have to listen as carefully and intervene as little as possible. And listening helps you evaluate whether or not you can help. I read this wonderful article, and it was called When the Life Jacket Becomes a Club. So sometimes we're so busy helping, and then we get so frustrated and angry because people don't appreciate all that we do. So when that happens, do something nice for yourself. So you ask yourself, what must I avoid doing? Am I the best person for this? How can I share responsibility? This is all about sharing responsibility in our wonderful community. Am I comfortable with the kind of help that I am able to give? So I want to close with a quote from Jonas Salk. If we can be courageous one more time, then we are fearful. If we can be trusting one more time, then we are anxious. If we can be cooperative one more time, then we are competitive. If we can be forgiving one more time, then we are vindictive. If we can be loving one more time, then we are hateful. We will have moved closer to the next breakthrough in our evolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a few minutes of questions, and then when we break, our panelists will a few will step here, and we're going to spread out through the synagogue so you have a chance to ask some specific questions. So the first question, and I think it was addressed earlier to Sue for FEMA, is, we'll just pass the microphone around, is FEMA establishing a disaster recovery center somewhere in this area, and if so, where?
Yes, we do have a disaster recovery center. It's about 2.5 miles from here at the Bayland Community Center on Bissonnet.
That's on Bissonnet, just west of Hillcroft, I think. Yeah. The hours?
9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and I believe it's 9 to 6 Saturday and Sunday. I'm not sure. I'm not in the disaster recovery center specifically. I do know that all of our disaster recovery centers do have lines, but they are starting to lessen, and that's why our hours have been cut to 9 to 7.
Okay. Next question. This may be for, I guess, for Richard maybe. Question is, where can I access a list of what requires and does not require a permit?
We actually have, there's 2 different websites that can talk about permitting, what's required, what is not. One of them is www.houstonpermittingcenter.org. There's also the houstonrecovers.org. Both of those either have links to or have information on them telling you and what would require and what does not require. But for the most part, if you are doing any trade work such as electrical, mechanical, air conditioning, HVAC, anything like that that's being done requires a permit. Any structural work would require a permit. Now, and if your home is within the 100-year floodplain, it may require a permit. It most likely would require a permit, but I'm not going to say that they all do. If you are just removing sheetrock, insulation, and replacing sheetrock and insulation, that does not require a permit at all. The only other thing is if you are replacing any windows or doors, and I'm going to categorize doors here by saying exterior doors. So doors to a bedroom, things like that aren't counted. But if you have exterior doors or doors between, if you have an attached garage, the door between your home and that garage would be considered an exterior door. So if you're replacing any windows or doors, those require permitting.
Okay. And Richard, there's a number of questions related to the 50% rule in terms of the home evaluation. Can you talk a little bit about that and what the city's involvement is and what that process looks like and tips for the homeowners, et cetera?
Sure.
And repeat
the web addresses were houstonpermittingcenter.org, and I'll also tell you at the end of the meeting, I'll be over here. I will have some information I can hand out so that these are addresses you can get them without having to always write them down. The other one is houstonrecovers.org. In regard to the 50%, and that's going back to substantial damage or non-substantial damage, the city has gone out and done a lot of evaluations, but some of that also revolves around the FEMA inspectors coming back out when the FEMA inspectors are here to look at for substantial damage. One of the things, and again, I'm only speaking for the city of Houston. Somebody asked about the city of Bel Air. I can't answer questions for the city of Bel Air, but in regards to the substantial damage, if your home has been damaged more than 50% of the home value, that doesn't include the lot value, just the home itself, then it would be considered substantially damaged. One of the things that we use is HCAD values, the Harris County Appraisal District values. And I understand those aren't always accurate in terms of the fact that a lot of times the lot values are extremely high and the house values are extremely low. But we have to have some place to start. And so that's generally where we start with those. But however, you can, if you come in and your damage is $20,000 and the HCAD says that your house is only worth $30,000, but to rebuild or to bring that house back to the condition prior to the disaster, you know, it would be that the house was worth $50,000 or $60,000. If they have people come in, they either come in with the contractor's estimates, things like that. We've had some come in with appraisals. So we understand that but please understand, we're working off of what we can. So that's where we do use the HCAD values as a starting point, but it is not an end-all, be-all. We do understand that a lot of times the lot values get so high that they bring the house values down that isn't reasonable for what may actually be true value of the house. But we have to start someplace, and without physically going out to every house and saying, and going through a full inspection and full appraisal value, it's hard to say without that. So that's kind of where we start. Right. So what else do you want?
What's that?
What else do they want?
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So the information, the question had to do with, as we, many residents may be here from the city of Bel Air in terms of the guidelines that may or may not be different as Bel Air residents versus city of Houston residents. The comment was made that there may be another information meeting next week that the city of Bel Air will be sponsoring. So if you go to the city of Bel Air's website, you'll probably be able to find some information there as relates to the practices associated with elevation and appraisal as far as the city of Bel Air is concerned. Richard's here representing the city of Houston.
But I want to. You can bring an appraisal value, and we will definitely take that into account. Well, I say consider, because I'm saying that you bring it in, and they will take it. I can't guarantee that, and I say consider, because you're not going to guarantee that the appraised value, who did it, we'll have to look at who's done it, where it's done, things like that. You have to have, I could go out, look at your house, and go, oh yeah, I'm going to appraise it at $100,000. We've got to have a substantial basis to accept that appraisal.
Okay, sir, I'm gonna ask you to hold that question if you want to ask him afterwards in one-on-one. Okay, next question. This is for Wayne. For Wayne.
Okay, that's what I was going to. The question about what does the 50% have to do with? The 50% substantial damage basically deals with, do you have to elevate or rebuild your home? Or if you rebuild your home, do you have to bring it up to above the 100-year base flood elevation? So that's either raising the home, or if you rebuild, raising the lot in some manner. And so yes, if they're over 50% substantial damage, then we go into the FEMA categories and start looking at that as to whether the houses have to be raised above the base flood elevation if they're not already.
Justin, do you want to respond?
Joel?
Yeah, one second, Jason. Justin?
So a couple of comments here. The city has to do their thing when it comes to making or determining a substantially damaged property. That's when you potentially have additional coverages available under your FEMA flood policy. That was alluded to by Wayne earlier, talking about elevation. So if you get the letter, and if, let's say, you accept it or don't fight it, which you can fight it, that's what he's saying, you can bring in appraisals, and you have to do something with your home, there's additional coverage available. It's called ICC. It stands for Increased Cost of Compliance. It's available under your flood policy. It's limited to $30,000. Obviously, you talk about potentially raising a 2,500 square foot home. It's going to put a dent in that, but it's not going to raise the house. It's better than nothing. The caveat is, this is the ICC funds available is not additional funds. So if your home is insured for, on your flood policy, $250,000, which is the max you can carry, you cannot go above $250,000. So if the damages to your home were $200,000 and he says it's substantially damaged, you can get another $30,000 because it's under the $250,000 cap. But let's say your flood claim was $240,000 and he says you're substantially damaged. I'm not trying to make you the bad guy, but he says you're substantially damaged. You cannot get $30,000 more. You could only get the $10,000 difference to the $250,000. So I just want to point out, yes, there's more funds available, but it's still within whatever your limit of coverage is. Happy to talk about that later if there's more questions on it.
Jason?
Yeah, so as a contractor, you guys hear me? As a contractor, and I've dealt with 95% of my jobs in the last 10 years have been in the flood zone. Whether they flooded or not, it's still the same rules, a 50% rule. So just to kind of clarify that, on paper, what you're submitting to the city, your scope of work that your contractor provides, whatever that total is, has to be under 50% of the either HCAT improvement value or a third-party appraisal. Senator Richard said it can't just be a random appraisal. If it's a licensed, stamped, state of Texas appraiser, that number is as valid as HCAT. I've never had one turned down. And in fact, I've had to go that route often because the HCAT value is too low. Another alternative, which I've never had to do, but actually the city of Houston has told me is another alternative, not in Bel Air though, by the way, this is Houston only. Right, but this applies to Houston only. The other option, which is not as easy, It's a little more costly to break it into phases, as you can actually phase the project out. You can close out the first portion, start a new one. And in Bel Air, it's cumulative, so that 50%, it's cumulative. But in Bel Air, they don't count appliances and half the other stuff you're doing, whereas City of Houston, they count everything. So it's sort of a trade-off. But in 9 years, I've never had the city turn one down, but often you have to get a licensed third-party appraiser to submit that form.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, sir, I'm going to ask you, we're going to take questions only from up here, please. Wayne, I'm going to ask you to answer the next question. If you can just give some points and comments regarding helping people decide whether it's worth spending the dollars to raise a home. What would be some of the criteria and things people should think about and take into consideration?
Well, obviously the house needs to be a sound house, right? So it needs to have economic value. It doesn't make sense to spend $150,000 on a $100,000 house to elevate that house, right? It needs to be a house with value, or it needs to have a lot of value to you, a high intangible value to you. We get a lot of calls about, can I raise the house? We can raise any house. Some houses are easier to raise than others. Sometimes we need a plastic bag to put the parts in, right? So we can raise it, but it's completely doable. We expect to find one of 100 different problems with any given house, maybe 10 of those 100 problems. We just address it. So it needs to be a sound house and economically, not necessarily sound structurally. We can make it that.
So even if it's like an addition and it's been 2 slabs just joined together, you still can lift it?
Yes, we can lift if it's got cracks, if it's had repairs to the slab, if there's additions, seams in the slab. We expect to find those things, and we deal with them during the elevation appropriately.
Okay. Justin, this probably question is for you. The question is, am I able to sell my household before I receive flood insurance settlement or insurance settlement?
That's a loaded question. You can certainly sell it. Right now, when it comes to assignment of benefits, I am not recalling exactly how FEMA handles those. Your claim to your insurance company is still valid because you owned the home at the time of the loss. Now, the caveat may be, most of you probably carry replacement cost coverage. So, in other words, if it costs $100 to put something back, you get $100. Insurance companies factor in often depreciation on physical materials. If you sell your home, you no longer qualify to get replacement cost coverage. Some insurance companies may still pay it, but you don't technically qualify for it. So if the insurance company says your claim value was $200,000, but your actual cash value because of depreciation, because materials degrade over time, was $175, $175 would be your number. So selling your home could have some caveats there that you need to think about and look into a little further, as it may change your net claim proceeds.
Great. Next question is probably for FEMA. Is there FEMA money available to either raise a home or to knock down a home?
Wow. Yeah, that's another loaded question. The FEMA money that you receive, if you are approved for a FEMA grant, that's your decision how you spend it. If you decide you want to tear down the house after you've received the grant from FEMA and you want to use that money to tear it down, that's your choice. If you want to buy gifts for your family with the money that you receive from FEMA, that's your choice. We're giving you the money with the understanding that we expect you to make repairs to make your home livable. What you do with it, that's your choice. We have no way of going back and saying, did you make the repairs? There's just too many people for us to do that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. Flood insurance would be covering your flood damage through your insurance policy. FEMA gives grants to cover the repairs that are not covered under your insurance policy, an SBA loan, or if you were to get money from a volunteer organization such as Red Cross, a church group, or something like that. So our max grant amount is $33,300 per registration for the household. Now, if you get an insurance policy that pays you $175,000, you've already gone over the $33,300 we're going to give you. We will not give you an additional $33,000 over that $175,000. We pay up to $33,300 as a grant. It does not have to be paid back to the government. It is our way of helping you with your recovery funds.
Justin, you want to respond?
I think I can better explain what she was trying to ask. Things get confused very easily when we start talking about your FEMA flood policy and then the money she's providing. The National Flood Insurance Program actually falls under FEMA's guidance, but your insurance is part of the NFIP, even if it's written through another company called a Write Your Own. So if you have insurance with American Bankers or Wright or another insurance company, it still goes back to NFIP. That is not what she does, has nothing to do with it. And as she just explained, that's a different side of FEMA. That's a side of FEMA to help people that don't have insurance in force. What you were talking about is your FEMA flood policy. And that's where the confusion sets in, is because they're all under the same umbrella, but they're two different houses.
Okay, one last question, Justin. This may be for you. Question has to do with rental assistance and applying for it, getting extensions for it, and what it covers.
You're not going to like the answer, unfortunately. The flood policy provides no coverage for additional living expenses. One thing a lot of people end up doing is working quickly to get their contents list together and submitted to their adjusters and paid. And often I know many insureds will end up using the proceeds they get from their contents claim to help pay for whatever room and board they need immediately. And the reason I mention your contents is a lot of homes have mortgages. So with your flood claim, if your building coverage is going to have the mortgage holder on it, your contents claims are going to be paid to you directly. So my best advice to you would be get your contents list together in a spreadsheet if possible. It'll make your adjuster's life easier quickly, and maybe you can use some of those funds to help you. But unfortunately, that isn't covered. Now, I'm going to say FEMA has been helping with those, I believe.
When it comes to rental assistance, that falls under the grant money that FEMA will provide. You will have to be registered with us. A caseworker will review your case. You will have to provide a copy of your rental agreement, rent receipts, and utility bills and things like that. But FEMA is assisting with rentals and getting funds to you to help you cover those costs while your house is being repaired or replaced.
Great, thank you. So we're going to stop now, and the panelists will be here. We're going to divide them up in different areas of the synagogue, and you have a chance to ask some questions one-on-one. I just want to take a minute and thank all our panelists for being here this evening, for giving up of their time. So just as a way to divide people up, and just so you'll know, because there are two different groups of people here from FEMA. Just give me one more second, please. Shh. there are two different groups of resources here from FEMA. So the first is if you're with a National Flood Insurance and you have insurance and you want to go see David Goldberg, he's right over here. I might just stay right here in the corner, David. It's up in the corner. Okay. Back there in the corner, David Goldberg, National Flood Insurance, if you already have the insurance. The FEMA representatives that are outside in the lobby are if you want additional information regarding the grant program and how to apply for that, that will be the FEMA in the lobby versus the National Flood Insurance Program, which will be over there in the corner. The folks are here from SBA. They're going to go in the one corner over there, and they'll be standing there, be able to provide you information and ask questions. If you want to speak with Wayne from the elevation, he'll go on right over there, Wayne, and he'll be available to ask you questions over there. I'm going to have Jason stay up here by the table, and Justin stay up here by the table, and our folks from Chase Bank. Ron, why don't you go straight in the back of the room in the center there. So we've got National Flood Insurance over there. JFS will be outside in the lobby with FEMA grants outside in the lobby. Chase Bank in the back around mortgage. SBA in the corner over there. Wayne with elevation over here. And Jason, the contract will be up here. And Justin, insurance will be up here as well. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Just a quick question. So just to see that guy going, oh yeah, sure.